Grab yourself a beer, strap yourself in, and get ready because you're listening to the Clock and Talk on Arsenal podcast. Hello and welcome to the Clock and Talk. I'm your host Tez. Thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. You can follow us at clockend_talk on Twitter. Each and every week I'm joined by two blokes. Unfortunately though, Tony, our other bloke is not here, mate.
I mean, it's just normal now. I don't even know if we expect Shrin to turn up. I think it'd be a surprise if he does turn up.
Well, the one thing, mate, I've fucking sacked him this week, even if he did turn up, because I've brought a guest in. Max from Arse Brothers. How are you, buddy?
Good, mate. How are you, boys?
Good, mate. Good. How's the podcast world going?
It's good, mate. It's good. I've just finished recording the Arse Brothers Rankcast with my brother, Toby, and that was an hour and a half of what's either going to be brilliance or shit. So we'll see how it comes out in the editing. We'll see what stays on the cutting room floor because 6 beers in, there was some horrible shit that got said.
Well, let's tell the listeners who you are and where you are and how you started the podcast. So how did it come about, mate?
So basically you've got my brother and I, Toby and Max, and we're both born in London, but we've been over here for basically 3/4 of our lives. Mad Arsenal fans. We used to spend about 3 hours a week, 4 hours a week talking to each other about the Arsenal. And eventually kind of came up with the idea of maybe recording it. We both started to get really, really into podcasts a couple of years ago as far as listening to them. Mm-hmm. And there wasn't a huge amount coming out of Australia. I mean, there was only a big Arsenal supporters club here in Melbourne. There's been a bit more over the last couple of years. So we came up with this idea for the Arse Brothers. Fucking stupid name. Don't Google it. It comes up with just horrible, horrible shit. And it started off as a bit of a joke, and we recorded the first one expecting, we get 5 listens, 10 listens, a few people we knew.
Yep.
And we ended up getting some kind of reasonably high-profile shares really early. And it kind of blew up, and people were chasing us for content, and we thought we might take it a bit seriously. I do a guest spot as well every couple of weeks with the guys from Guns and Yellow Ribbons who are based over there in London, and they're a good lot of lads as well. And, I mean, really, it's just us. The podcast is dick jokes and drinking beers for us, really, the Arse Brothers. So, like I said to you earlier, mate, it's a reason to get away from our wives for a couple of hours.
Nice, mate, nice. Okay, let's get into this game, Tony. Brighton. Now, what was your thoughts when the lineup come up?
I'm going to go with the same as I said before, that if you're playing 3 in midfield, you can't have 3 that all kind of sit behind the ball and none of them are really a goal threat or even an assist threat most of the times. So for me, as I said, I've said it before, if you're playing 3, Ramsey has to play. And you can kind of cover his lack of discipline if you've got 2 defensive midfielders behind him. The issue previously has always been that he leaves, it was Xhaka last season, isolated when he bombs on and doesn't get back. But if there's 2 people there, then they're not isolated by the nature of them being 2 of them. So apart from that, I probably think we played what we had. I wasn't happy to see Koscielny in the team. Not that he'd done anything wrong, but before the game, I always worry when I see him on the team sheet now. But apart from that, I think we didn't really have too many choices.
Max, what do you like on lineups, mate? You thought it was pretty good?
Everything except for I thought that Maitland-Niles had probably done enough in the Burnley game to keep having a crack at that right back position. I'm never sold on Lichtsteiner. I love what he does off the pitch. I love that he's a nutter. I love that he wants to go and fuck everyone up. But as far as his actual football running days, I think they might be a bit past him. So that was the only one that surprised me. And I'm not a huge fan of this three in midfield, this Torreira, Guendouzi, Xhaka three in midfield. There's a serious lack of a ball carrier in there and a penetrative runner, I guess. So I'm always worried about creating.
Mm-hmm. I said to you a couple of weeks ago, Tony Lichtsteiner, and I don't know if I've really said it much on the podcast, but when we signed him, I understood the signing, but I've never been a huge fan of him. He just...
Yeah, it was one everyone seemed to have high hopes for because of his experience. And I confess I don't watch tons of Italian football, but when people are saying he'd won 7 titles in a row or whatever it was, the vast majority of them, maybe even all of them, he wasn't a starter, but it's positive spin. When you're trying to look for the good points, you could say, he won 7 titles in a row. If you're trying to write him off, you could say, yeah, but he never played. I agree with Max. I'm not a huge fan of his. To be honest, I think the times he's looked best for us when he's played on the right side of 3 centre-backs.
100% agree, Tony. 100% agree.
And
it's too much now to get up and down a wing for a guy of his age. The Premier League is too physical, it's too active. I think him going into a centre-back 3, he could put maybe another year on his career because he's a nasty bastard and he's not got a bad football brain. But as far as his motor, mate, his motor's smoked. He's done.
Yeah, again, I agree. And I said this before. When I think the first time he played in the back 3 for us, apart from a Europa League game, was at Man United. He came on when Holding got injured, and I was really worried. I thought, you don't want Rashford sort of running down the outside of him, but he done really well. And then he played a couple of others where I think he's done quite well. But I completely agree. As a wing back, he might have half a chance. As a full back, when they're meant to attack the amount they do, he's gone. He's not got the legs for it. There was one chance right at the end of the first half where he's crossed the ball on the byline and it's gone straight to Matt Ryan, who's thrown it out, and they've had a counter attack. And Lichtsteiner he walked back. He completely walked back, and luckily they ran the ball out of play and we got a goal kick. But it was directly in front of where I was sitting, and everyone was going mad because he honestly just walked. And yeah, it was 40 minutes in, so you could say it's near the end of the half, so you might be a bit tired, but just walking back is inexcusable, really.
That's why I was hoping to see that Ainsley Maitland-Niles get another run, because for what maybe his skill is lacking, his athleticism is going to make up. And in the way we're bombing wing-backs high up the pitch now is, it's insanity. It was insanity in the first game at City. It was insanity at the second game at Chelsea, and it's still insanity now. So you've got to have athletic guys. We've seen that with Monreal coming to the end of his run now as well. And, like you said, Lichtsteiner walking back, I don't think it was desire. I just don't think he had anything left.
I put it to you boys, we've got Liverpool next week. Max, do you run with this back 4?
No, I would. I think we're going to get shithoused if we play Maitland-Niles. I think we've got to go back to 3 at the back. I think we've got to play Maitland-Niles on one side and play Kolasinac on the other side. The only time we've ever got the best out of Kolasinac is when he's been a minimised defensive responsibility wing back, not a high defensive responsibility left back. I think you got to give Maitland-Niles another run. And, maybe even pull Lichtsteiner into that back 3. Like Tony said, I don't mind him in a back 3. And, he's a nasty bastard and he knows his way around the pitch. I think that's got to be the smarter way to go.
Mm-hmm. Tony, your thoughts on the same question?
Yeah, first of all, I thought I would never ever say these words. I really hope Mustafi's going to be fit. Because, I agree. I've said on here many times, I think a back 5 is a system that probably works the best because it's so adaptable, but I don't think we have the players to play any system at the moment. I agree. I'd go Kolasinac and Ainsley Maitland-Niles as wing-backs, and you'd put... So again, I don't really want Koscielny playing against a team with movement as good as they have. It's not... With Koscielny, the issue is he just doesn't track runners. It's not even a lack of pace. You look at both Danny Ings' goals and Charlie Austin's goal at Southampton. He wasn't outrun. He just doesn't track movement. And Firmino, although not the most clinical, has excellent movement. So if I'm looking at the back who would play in the centre-back, if Mustafi's not fit, even if you shoehorn Lichtsteiner in, you put Socrates in the middle of the 3, I ain't got a clue who plays on the left.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's Koscielny or bust, isn't it?
But Koscielny can only play in the middle because he can't run the channels. And then I was really worried for Firmino's movement.
Yeah, it is a worry, boys. Mafropanos, where's he? Do we know?
He's back in training.
Yeah,
but he hasn't played a
few
full
weeks
match.
away, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't played a competitive match since April.
So we might be thinking he might come back against, was it Blackpool? Is it?
I'd imagine that's probably what they've earmarked for him.
Yeah.
Even then, you'd be better off taking that. Honestly, I think you'd be better off taking that. What's his name? Zach Medley. You'd be better off having a run on him than rolling the dice on a guy who we saw for a couple of games last year. We all got a hard on for him because he looked like something we didn't have. But he's been gone the whole season. I'd rather bring someone in who's seen a little bit of first-team football this year than bring someone in raw. I mean, look at Koscielny. Even for a guy of his experience level, I know he's got his detractors around, but you even look at how long it's taken him to get up to pace. I mean, even in this Brighton game, I didn't think he had a terrible game in the Brighton game, but, I mean, he's still not there. But put the physical part of it aside, the mental part of it, like Tony said, the tracking runners part of it and the staying dialed in for 90 minutes, drag that big lump up. He looked good when he came on. Was it Europa League? He came on for a bit. He looked class for a few touches, and he's a big lump.
I haven't seen much of him, so I think I'm trying to think of the game that he did start, or he come on.
He hasn't started. He came on. I think he played 45 or 35 against Borska away, and he looked pretty solid. But I mean, I think it was already 3-0 at the time, and the game was over. I don't watch loads of the younger age groups. I know people that watch a hell of a lot more than me, and any time I speak to them, they always say he's not going to make it at Arsenal. He's just not good enough. But who knows? There's been players that's definitely been said that before, and then out of nowhere it just works for them. So,
running out of options a bit here, though. At some point we're all sitting here saying, who are we going to play on the left? Who are we going to play on the right? Eventually we got to play someone.
Well, that's the biggest problem, isn't it?
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, we're fucked. We're running out of bodies.
We're completely fucked, mate. There's none. It's Lickstein. Yeah, we're fucked. We're fucked. And I really fucking worry about just how many it's going to be against. And I hate to say it, but how many is it going to be against Liverpool next week? Because, mate, we just watched fucking Brighton run over top of our defence. So, what the fuck's Liverpool going to do? But anyway, we'll worry about that game next week, boys, because we'll get through this one. So, Tony Aubameyang, he obviously got the first goal, and we were off thinking, we're off to a great start. But just before then, that was about the 7th minute, and he lobbed one over as well, and that was Matt Ryan just touched it up above the bar. And look, I hate to say this, but Matt Ryan was very good in goals yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great save, especially if Matt Ryan isn't the tallest of keepers. So to backpedal like that and reach it, I thought Aubameyang done everything right. He couldn't have done any more. It was a great run, and he gave him real problems early on. But yeah, it's a top draw save. Not much more you can say about it. Great effort, great save, I think. Well played all round.
So Aubameyang got that goal, and mate, we were looking good. Probably that first 20 minutes, we were looking really good.
Yeah, I mean, we were tearing them apart. Every time we went forward, we looked dangerous. We had intent. What I will say about our goal, I mean, it's a great finish and great play by Lacazette to keep the ball alive, and semi-decent pressing for the first time we've seen that probably ever under Emery, although everyone seems to think we're a pressing side. But I say this when it goes against us, so I'm going to say it when it goes for us. The offside rule is a complete load of bullshit. It needs changing. Again, I'm happy it went wrong, but if I criticise it when it goes wrong, I've got to criticise it when it goes right. How can Lacazette be 5 yards offside and deemed inactive and then charge down the ball and it leads to a goal? Again, very happy it happened, but the rule needs to change, surely.
Any thoughts on that, Max?
Active, inactive, first phase, second phase, it's fucked. Who fucking knows what's going on anymore, mate? But if it happened to us, I'd be jumping up and down saying it was offside. So I'm, as a as a fairly level-headed Arsenal fan, I'm happy to agree with Tony and say I'm glad it happened, but it was fucking offside.
Yes, it was. But yeah, we'll just skim straight over that one, boys. So anyway, look, we continued on. There was a couple other shots, Tony, in the first half. There was one, I can't remember the exact minute, Aubameyang, wasn't Guendouzi. Torreira fed the ball, to Aubameyang, and I have to say good save by Matt Ryan again. I've got nothing more on that. Yeah,
I mean, it is a good save. It's a great run by Aubameyang to start off. He comes from wide, very wide left and caught the defender asleep. It's a great run. It's a good first touch, and from there, Aubameyang should score. It is a good save, but I don't think he should give the keeper the opportunity to make the save. I've seen quite a lot of hate, really, on Twitter for him because that would have put the game to bed. And I think it's a bit strong. Like, I've seen people say, Kane doesn't miss that, Salah doesn't miss that. And I'm thinking, he's top scorer for a reason. Yeah, he misses chances, but he makes them for himself. As I said, I expect them to score, and it is a good save. But
anyone who thinks that he is some kind of a Higuain, some kind of a really, really efficient goal scorer who takes his chances, then you've not watched enough of him at Arsenal and you haven't done your research on him elsewhere. He's a high chance, low efficiency player. So he creates more and scores less. He's much more in the Cavani mould than he is in, say, the Higuain mould. And the last couple of weeks, at least the bit that he's brought into his game is probably last 3 weeks, he's really starting to work his hole off and run the channels and get into spaces. So the way I think I put out a tweet and I said it wasn't a world-class finish, it wasn't a world-class save, it was a decent finish and a decent save. An inch either side and it's a goal.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think he should have gone the other way as well. I think he should have gone for the same corner he scored in rather than going across the keeper just because of the angle he had. But, I saw things saying like, Lacazette definitely scores that. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Lacazette, but he doesn't. Like, I still don't understand why people are trying to create this battle between the two. They're completely different players. They may play in the same position, but they play completely different roles. And I'll be honest, if we were to have that chance 100 times over, I would want it to fall to Aubameyang over Lacazette.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you know what it's born from? Tony? It's born from 22 years of a Wengerian attitude for Arsenal fans, and we've always been seeking this 11 because Wenger was all about an 11 and he was never about a squad and he was always about one man and one striker and everyone fed into that. And you're completely right. This shit about people trying to pick one or pick the other or they've both got to play together. They're completely different. And I'll tell you what, Lacazette probably doesn't score that because Lacazette's finishing's been off for weeks. He's running like he's got lead boots. His touch has been really, really badly off. And the thing that saves him from the detractors is that he works his ass off and he's holding the ball up. If anything, he's playing a bit more like Giroud when Giroud was playing dynamically at the moment, not playing anything like, the Jermaine Defoe that people thought that we were signing. This, both when we signed Aubameyang and Lacazette, both players came with this hype of being some kind of fox in the box. And to be honest, neither of them's a fox in the box. Aubameyang's a channel runner and Lacazette's a connective player more than anything else, in my opinion.
I agree with you. He's, and we've said it a couple of times. He connects the play well, but he's not an out-and-out striker, is he? Like, he can create the chances, but he just and I agree. Aubameyang every day for me, but I don't want to get this Lacazette Aubameyang type of thing going because we're going to get some hate. But look, Lacazette, he should have probably. Well, he probably should have got that. Matt Ryan, good save. I think Aubameyang could have done a little bit better. As I don't know, I haven't been much on Twitter, Tony, so I don't know about the Kane comparison. But
it's just you get, and it will happen when Aubameyang starts having a bad run as well. So I'm not taking a dig at one side or the other, but it's like we spoke for the last few weeks about fanboys, where it's kind of like they support one player above, not above the team, but above the other players in the team. And it was just, and fanboys are seen as a negative term, and I don't mean it like that, but I don't know how else to describe it. And you've just had all the Lacazette fanboys coming out to have their moan because he got subbed off, and then they have to give a reason why he's better than everyone else. Like the amount, like the tweets yesterday, what was Emery doing? He's taken off our best player and our most creative player, or he's taken off our best striker and our best number 10. And you just think and I just think, what are you on about? And then, as I said, if Aubameyang goes 5 or 6 games without scoring, you'll get the Aubameyang fanboys come out and do the same thing. It's just Lacazette's the one that's not under fire, but the one that's being a bit questioned at the moment.
The problem is people just aren't willing to be linear enough in their narratives. Arsenal fans really struggle with being linear in their narratives for some reason. They set a position on a player and they're unwilling to change it. I'm quite happy to say that someone was crap one week and say they were man of the match the next week. Football's not definites. They're not robots. They're humans, and they're going to go through form and slumps. Watch the game as the game. Watch the player as the player, and make your decisions and your justifications at the end of the game. The next week we go again. You never know. We could come out against Liverpool and put on a high press and snatch a couple. I don't think we will, but it would really tell a lot of people to shut the fuck up and stop trying to throw the baby out with the bathwater and burn down the castle, because we picked up an away point against a pretty organised, pretty compact Brighton team, really, with a decimated defence, with half our team who want out the fucking door, with a new upstairs system who were trying to work out what to do with a coach, not a manager, and a guy who inherited someone else's team. Everyone just needs to calm the fuck down and just get on with it. We're in 5th. We're a point off Chelsea. We're doing all right, lads.
Since you actually brought that up, because I was going to go into this a little bit later, because I watched the game today, I kept off social media today and watched the game to Sabo, and I jumped on for a little fucking flick through. Now, where is this Emery out coming from? Like, for fuck's sake. Did you see it, Tony? Emery out.
I've seen loads of people moaning about people saying Emery out. I've not actually seen anyone say it. I can understand. I'm not saying that it's anywhere near Emery out, and that is clearly ridiculous. But I can see where frustrations are coming from based on not just yesterday, but probably our last few weeks. He's still picking battles that maybe he can't win. I think he's been scarred by his time at PSG. And I think what it is we were so positive about him during that 22, or even since the start of the season, because he didn't get any criticism after the Chelsea and City games, and rightly so. That I think you know what it's like, as Max just said, if people won't let you criticise even if something's going right. So everyone was storing up their criticisms, and some of them are very, very justified. But everyone was storing them up, and then they've all come out at once the results have started to go a little bit the other way. As I said, Emery out is way over the top, and I refuse to believe anyone actually believes that at this stage.
Just taking the piss, you think?
Yeah.
Looking for a fucking headline or a fucking retweet.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Some
I wouldn't even say taking the piss, but probably people looking to make a name for themselves. Or
pull your fucking head in, clowns.
Yeah. But as I said, it is built from all of the criticism coming out at once.
Yeah. That's a fucking joke. Now, I skimmed past, so 35th minute, Tony, walk us through what the fuck happened. 1-1.
It's weird because it probably came from our best delivery of the day from a corner. But went straight through the box at pace, any touch towards the goal and it goes in. But then I literally don't know what happened. It's a long ball. It's a weird one because I've seen Lichtsteiner get most of the hate, so to speak, or most of the blame.
Yep.
His positioning was terrible. But then people saying, he's headed it back into the middle, which he has. But if he leaves it or doesn't get the header, I think Solly marches in anyway. So for me, I would rather... First off, I'd rather him be in the correct position. That's obvious. Secondly, I think I'd rather him header it and try and get a flick on back to the keeper than leave it and be completely out of the action, because I think it would have been 2 or 3 on 1 on Leno with Solly, March, Lucardia, and I think they had someone else not too far off. So I don't think it's as bad of a mistake as everyone is going on about. For me, Leno is blameless. I've seen some people criticise him and a lot of people defend him. For me, he has to come out there. and he just gets beaten to it. But he is also coming across the box because he was waiting over the other side of the box, expecting Lichtsteiner to nod it back to him.
Where was your mate, Kashani?
No, I mean, you can't blame any of the centre-backs for that, to be honest. They're up for a corner. The one thing I was going to say, that for me, the people blaming Ozil, they don't want Ozil to play well. Like, they're the people that want to blame him for everything.
I'm not an Ozil. I'm no Ozil hater. I'm no Ozil hater at all. Right? I sit very much on the fence with Ozil. But you've got Lichtsteiner and Guendouzi sitting back. You've got Guendouzi who's picking up the man who's running off Lichtsteiner. Yep. There's another guy who comes running through the middle. Every day of the week, that's Ozil's man. Ozil doesn't track him. Ozil doesn't run with him. Ozil doesn't push to get there. Guendouzi has to pull off to the centre, which ends up opening the space for then Lichtsteiner to make his error and move on. Now, I'm the first guy to say on Twitter and on social media that I don't buy into the narrative of giving Ozil shit for not running. But when it comes to basic core defensive responsibilities, and there's a man that runs past you, and we all know that Ozil is athletic enough because he pays that Theo Walcottian lip service that we all know oh too well from years of Wenger. He pays it all the time and runs around at pace, but he never gets back there and covers it. I refuse to blame Lichtsteiner for it except for his positioning. I refuse to blame Guendouzi for it. Leno, I don't know. Maybe if you stay, at least you've got to make the guy work. If you come and you don't get there, there's always going to be a cloud on it. But really, it was just a giant clusterfuck. Well,
I mean, for me, there's a system issue there because we've got 3 defensive midfielders on the pitch. We've got fullbacks that really shouldn't be going up for corners. 99% of teams won't put fullback up for corners. And you end up with an attacking midfielder who's known for not being the greatest defensively as our third deepest player.
Yep,
beyond all, there's a huge system issue there. Because why isn't Torreira in Ozil's position? And Torreira does a better job there. But
why are both centre-backs in the box?
That was what my thought was on. That was why I mentioned Kashani. Socrates as well. Why were they both up? That's why I was saying to me, where are they? Yeah, but
it's a corner.
We're not chasing it, are we? We're not chasing the game.
No, but I mean, come on. You only have to. I don't mean to offend anyone here, but watch any football match and both centre backs go forward unless you're 1-0 up with 10 minutes to go and you're holding on. I think to say why are the centre backs up for a corner is a ridiculous statement.
But then you've got our defensive midfielder or one of our defensive midfielders taking the corner. You've got one of our other defensive midfielders, or the 3 who are playing in midfield sitting. So Guendouzi's sitting, Xhaka's taking the corner, both centre-backs are up. Then Torreira's obviously miles up there as well. I'm racking my brains trying to think where Torreira
that's what I'm saying.
would
That's
be.
what I'm saying. The system issue comes in because the fullback should be deeper. Torreira should be deeper. Ozil should never be the third deepest man. But as I said, to call out the centre-backs, I think it's lunacy. Like when Mustafi scored against Man United, no one said, why wasn't that idiot at centre back?
Well, my argument was, Kashani hasn't got the legs to get back there quick enough. Guendouzi was back there.
Guendouzi's always sat, regardless of. Again, look, I can see the whole pitch every game. Yeah. And I'm not trying to be condescending. But ever since Guendouzi's been at the club, he has always been the deepest man when we've got a corner. Even I think it was the Man City game. There was a game where he made a mistake from a corner. They played a long ball and they let it bounce and it got robbed and then they missed a chance. I think it was the Man City game, first game of the season. So from day one, he has been the deepest man at corners. That's how it is. He's not a goal threat. He's not a threat of shooting from long range. So leave him deep where he could potentially do something.
I didn't have an issue with people calling Ozil out on it. I had a little bit of an issue with people having their blinkers up and not going into the depths of the conversation that we've just had. Not at least bringing up the positioning of both centre-backs, not bringing up the positioning of the wing-backs, not bringing up the positioning of the central defenders, and not bringing up the fact that we got overloaded 3-on-2. You put a 3-on-2 overload on a break.
Yeah, and you've said wing-backs, and I know it might have just been a slip of the tongue, but at that point they weren't wing-backs. They were full-backs.
Kolasinac wasn't a wing-back all game. Kolasinac had an absolute positional stinker because all they did, Brighton, all game was smash diagonal balls in between where Kolasinac should have been and the outside shoulder of the centre-back, win the first knockdown, and then cut the ball back to the penalty spot. You know, as much as I've spent 2 weeks loving Kolasinac, like we all have, and saying, isn't he fantastic? Defensively, positionally, he's fucking awful.
Yeah.
Can't argue with that one. Righto, so we'll just put it down to a clusterfuck. I'll take what you said on board, Tony, with the centre backs, and mate, I'll take, as always, I'll take it on board. Because
again, just to that, it's
right.
what we've said since pretty much day one doing this podcast. The goal is very, very rarely one person, unless it's a huge absolute howler. It's very rarely one person's fault.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Now, what was interesting for me, and probably a lot of Arsenal fans, 46th minute, Tony, Iwobi comes on, Ozil goes off.
Yeah, I said earlier, I think Emery's trying to pick a battle he can't win with Ozil. Not because it's Ozil, but because we just create 10 times less when Ozil's not on the pitch. So, it was a difficult one yesterday because Ozil done next to fuck all in the first half. And again, I'll be pretty balanced. I'll rate Ozil and I like Ozil, but when he's been bad, I'll say he's been bad. I don't think he was bad. I think he was anonymous. But then you could label that with a lot of players that done pretty much nothing in the first half. The reason I say we can't, Emery's picking a battle I don't think he can win, is because it's been seen time and time again. Every time Ozil gets subbed off in a game, we create much less after he's gone off. Obviously, he was out for a period, and barring the Tottenham game, where I think it's very fair to say we wouldn't have done any better with Ozil on the pitch. But barring that, we struggled to create in all of the games he missed. We was semi-lucky against Bournemouth. It was an own goal, the first goal that broke the deadlock, and then a counter-attack. I mean, it shows people. I've seen loads of people saying, but what did he do in the first half to warrant being kept on the pitch? But one, you could say that about a lot of people. But again, the proof's in the pudding. You look at Palace, controlling the game 2-1 up, Ozil goes off, we concede, and we lose all control of the game. Chelsea 2-2, Ozil goes off, we lose all control of the game, lose it 3-2. Yesterday, I know it was 1-1 at half time and we finished 1-1, so we didn't concede anymore, but we didn't create a single chance after Ozil went off. So again, the proof is in the pudding, and it's why I've been saying it for weeks. I think Emery has been scarred by his experience with the big names at PSG, and again, Ozil isn't blameless at all, but I really think that Emery's cutting his nose off to spite his face, and every time something's going wrong, so we're level and he thinks we should be winning, because it's Ozil he's got the battle with, it's him that comes off. But I think pretty much every single time he's dragged Ozil off, it's been to the detriment of the team.
Mm-hmm. Max, and then these subs and
can I just get onto that? Iwobi also didn't know where he was playing. He hadn't told Iwobi where he was playing, and you could tell. I tweeted after the game yesterday as I was on my way back that until Maitland-Niles come on, there was probably 4 players who didn't know where they were playing or what they were supposed to be doing.
We couldn't work out the shape. Toby and I said today, we couldn't work out the shape. And then we were looking at it, and by the time Ramsey had come on, we were like, what is this, 5 central midfielders all standing in a box? I mean, even Iwobi, who's a wide player, plays inside channel. We were crying out for width. As much as, players like Mkhitaryan have pissed me off intermittently this year, you were crying out to bring on, Maitland-Niles and Mkhitaryan and make the pitch a bit bigger, because we were so narrow. We were so narrow, and everyone was running over the top of each other. And Brighton, did this funny thing. And if it was a tactical masterclass from Houghton, I'll take my hat off to him. But he pressed with the strikers to put pressure on our back 4, and then he parked a line of 5 in the middle of the park, and they didn't press at all, and they just said, pass through us. And that's why so many of the chances were balls over the top. Very rare you see Arsenal having 3 chances in a game from balls over the top, dragged down one-on-one with the keeper. But whether you're going to say that it's a personnel issue or it was a tactical issue or bringing players on or bringing players off, whatever it might be, on the day, very little worked. Very little worked for Arsenal.
Well, it's very hard to disagree with any of that. I fucking hate this. I hate agreeing with you. Can't fair dinner. But Ramsey, Lacazette, so that was another substitute, and then Niles and Kashani, he went off. So at that point, I was still scratching my head going, what formation are we fucking doing here? It's just a complete fuck up by Emery, I think. I try and look at it and don't sit back and go, oh, look, okay, like everybody else does and says Emery out, But can someone explain to me what the benefit of that was?
You've only got the pieces of you can only play chess with the pieces on the board, if that makes sense. I've had a few beers, right? If you don't have horses, you can't go 2 forwards and 1 sideways, right? And he's going to the bench and there's nothing on there to really massively change the game. And it's something, I've forgotten who it was. Might be one of the guys of Arsenal Vision. Someone brought it up a couple of weeks ago and it really struck home for me, where he said, we have to start taking some of these very good players off and having them on the bench, i.e. maybe starting a Lacazette and putting an Aubameyang on the bench and not starting with our best 11, because the team's fucked. And when it's not working, we actually need to bring guys on who can make changes to the shape or make changes to the game. And I said this week, the guy we've missed the most, and a lot of people slagged him off, is Danny Welbeck. Because all year when you dragged him off the bench, he brought you pace and he brought you power and he brought you something that the game hadn't had before. I feel now we're going to the bench and it's very kind of like for like, or I'll just drag on a midfielder, or I'll do this or I'll do that. I just worry that Emery doesn't have the pieces to be able to play the style of game that he actually needs to play, and he's sort of rattling the bag and reaching in and just pulling out what he's got.
Mm-hmm. I disagree. A lot of people share your opinion, but for me, you have to work with what you got. That's abundantly clear to anyone. Like, it's obvious, but the subs were still wrong. Like, what? As I said, when the players don't know where they're playing, there's something up. So yeah, he's got to work with what he's got, but he has to do the best with what he's got. And yesterday he didn't do that, and he makes subs for the sake of it. There was no positive impact for taking Ozil off. There was no positive impact for taking Lacazette off. And I'm not particularly a huge Lacazette fan, as anyone that listens will know, but you're not chasing the game, but you're 1-1. You would obviously prefer to win. He come in as this coach that wants to play attacking football, said, I'd rather lose going for it than park the bus and settle for a draw. And everything he done was against that. He's going back to what he done at Sevilla, which somewhat worked for him in that they won cup competitions but weren't ever any good in the league, with 3 defensive midfielders. And he's not lucky, but he's got the individual talent to still score goals. I mean, for me, it's quite surprising when you look. I think we're the 2nd top scorers in the league, which is unbelievable considering all things. But I think we're level. We concede the same amount of goals as Crystal Palace or something crazy.
I've got an interesting question for the both of you. Do you think that Emery is becoming a bit too much of a tinker man, and this consistent changing in form, shape, direction, pressing structures, everything every week? Let's take the injuries out of it. But do you think that maybe a more set structure with maybe a little bit more of a set 11 and a plan going into each game that's a little bit more direct, that we're testing and we're trying each week, might help our players to understand where they're meant to play and what they're meant to be doing? Absolutely.
I think he's changing way too much. Even in games, we're playing in the same game, we're playing 3 or 4 different formations and in them formations, each player's role, even if they're playing the same position, sometimes their role changes within. They might be a centre midfielder, but in one shape they're told to sit back a little bit. In another shape, they've got the license to bomb on. I really think at times he just does it for the sake of it. There's no reason behind it. Like, I mean, yesterday you can say it was 4-3-1-2 at the start with Ozil behind Lacazette and Aubameyang, but them two splitting wide a bit. When Iwobi's come on, Iwobi didn't know if he was a 10 or playing on the left, and he kind of played somewhere between the two. Lacazette and Aubameyang tried to play centrally. It left absolutely nothing on the right, which is the side we was getting exposed down the most defensively. So it just screamed of one of them changes. Like, what positive impact did he see? I really do think sometimes he just thinks, well, this isn't working, I'm going to make a change.
Yeah, I don't know why he did it. I have no idea, and I see no benefit in why he did it at all. In answer to your question, Max, I actually said last week, and Tony made me see the light, I suppose, because I said, remember when Pep started at City and he just, he obviously didn't have the team that first season, and I thought, well, maybe Emery's hasn't really got the team here at Arsenal. You know, like we brought Torreira in, we brought Lichtstein in for experience. Socrates is one that they've wanted to bring in. Young Guendouzi, well, look, he's been, you know, become a little gem, hasn't he? And he'll continue at Arsenal for a long time. But it was more the fact, has he got the players that fits his style? But then Tony said, what is his fucking style? And I scratch my head week in, week out. Tony's correct. I don't know what he's doing every week. So
is his style that he's a tinker man? Is that his style?
Could be.
You've also got a factor in, and we didn't cover it last week, and it came to me after the podcast, but obviously it's too late by then, that you were saying like Guardiola implemented his system and then got the players in to play that system, which is what happened.
Yeah.
Emery being a head coach and not a manager, he can make recommendations and he can tell them the type of players he wants, but in reality, it's not going to work the same because he's not got absolute control. And I know obviously you just brought up Guendouzi, but I don't think Emery would have gone out and said, I need a Guendouzi. Like, he's going to get players in from Sven that he's never heard of, and he's told have got talent and to give them a chance, or obviously not give them a chance in a match, but see how they train, and if they deserve it, they play. But that you're always going to struggle to fit everything into your mould if you're getting in players that, like, say, he might not see the use of a number 10, which it doesn't seem like he does. But then he gets a kid comes in who's absolutely unbelievable and is a brilliant 10. And it may force him to change his plans because he has an excellent player in that position. 10's a bad example because I feel we have an excellent 10 anyway.
Yeah, we do have. I'm the same. But give me this. Tell me this, though, Tony. So I read in today that we're linked to this Eva Benenga. Now, where's he fit into? Obviously, he's worked with Emery, and you know they've worked together at Sevilla and that. But I don't watch much Spanish league. So where does he fit into this Arsenal team at the moment under Emery?
Well, I'll start this off by saying my family are from Valencia. I always watched a hell of a lot of Valencia growing up, not so much anymore. To be honest, I don't watch much foreign football anymore because I'm usually travelling to and from games. But growing up, before I was actually going every week, so I was in front of the TV all day, I used to watch a hell of a lot of Valencia. I'm a huge Eva Benega fan. I know not a lot of people rate him, and he's probably getting on to his clock's getting nearer to the end of its time. But I don't really want him at Arsenal. He would sit in a 3 in the midfield like we played yesterday, and better with the ball than Guendouzi, very good passer of the ball, not really a goal threat, not really got the engine Guendouzi's got. I would say in terms of pure footballing terms, as in kicking a football, he's an upgrade on Guendouzi in terms of this team currently, but I don't think he adds anything. Another reason I don't want to sign him is I don't think we have the players to play any system. And again, I've said this pretty much all season. If we go 4-2-3-1, you have your 2 defensive midfielders in Xhaka and Torreira, that's fine. You can play Ozil 10. You kind of shoehorn Aubameyang to the left, and we have absolutely no one to the right. We go with what we went with yesterday, and you can't really be playing 3 centre midfielders. And the issue of bringing Benega in is the same as what we've got. He may be better, but it doesn't help us fix the problems we have in that we don't have players for all positions.
No, it's just because obviously they've worked together, so I thought the way they're talking about it is Emery's going to get his man and this and that in January. I don't know, we're getting a little bit off track on this Brighton game, but I was just more curious at where does he fit in to improve the squad, but you're telling me he doesn't.
No, it'll be in the middle to, as I said, I think Emery wants his idea is to be death by possession. If you have the ball 80% of the time, you're unlikely to concede. Usually, not with our defence, but in general, if you're controlling the ball, you're not going to concede because you've got the ball. And if you have a Torreira who's a good passer of the ball, Xhaka who's a good passer of the ball, and Benega who's a good passer of the ball, you're likely to have a lot of the ball. What it would mean is we sort of see a hell of a lot of what we saw yesterday. We had the ball but didn't do anything, especially in the second half. We had tons of the ball, just done absolutely nothing with it. And I think if Banega came in, you would see pretty much more of the same.
I think I wrote a tweet today, someone put it up, and I said, decent player will solve fuck all of our problems.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Yeah, I've spent 5 minutes saying that.
That's right. It's quality content, mate. Okay. I know it's going to be hard. Man of the match, Tony?
Aubameyang should have put the game to bed, but everything we've done good, where you're mentioning anything positive, the name Aubameyang comes up. So you have to give it to him, but it's by default. You shouldn't. It's not it's not an honour to win that.
Max, man of the match.
So I've been slagging him off for a couple of weeks, but I actually thought it was Guendouzi's best game in an Arsenal top. I thought he controlled it. I thought he wanted it. He kept asking for the ball in tight areas. He kept going. He ticked over possession. There wasn't a lot in front of him. He yelled at Lichtsteiner. He yelled at Ozil. He showed he's got big old fucking nuts. So go for it, mate. Man of the match.
Yeah, it has to be Aubameyang for me too, I suppose. I'd like to say Granit Xhaka, but he didn't do much. Did nothing bad. He
didn't
wrong.
do anything right or wrong.
Yeah.
There was a few players on the pitch who did that. There's a few players who you were looking at and you were like, did you do anything wrong? No. Did you do anything great? No. I couldn't give it to Aubameyang because I thought, again, we look at the positive of him. He got a goal. We look at the negative of him. There's maybe two more there for him. He always seems to take the hard one, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Well, the hardest one was the lob, I think.
That little lob, yeah.
That wasn't far off. Wasn't far off at all, that lob.
Lacazette, I thought Lacazette was pretty good while he was there. I don't want to get into it too much, but I don't know why he went off to start with, and it's got me completely fucked that one. But I thought he was pretty good for what did he do, 60-odd minutes or something, so...
It's got him a bit fucked up as well, Tez, because that's 2 dummy spits in 2 games where he's gone off the pitch and he's thrown his gloves or he's cracked the shit. He's not a happy chappy. Now, whether that's he's not a happy chappy at himself, as in he doesn't feel that he's taking his opportunities. He's a striker. He wants to score goals. I think it was Ian Wright was saying, no, it's a good thing. Don't worry about it. Strikers should be pissed off when they're scoring. The problem is if he's pissed off at Emery, or if that relationship, that really great relationship that he has with Aubameyang that's apparently really important for the dressing room, starts to disintegrate, then we start to have a few more insular problems that we can't kind of quantify through football on the pitch.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I
just looked at Tez. Sorry, I just looked at Craig's ratings.
Yeah.
And he gave it to Aubameyang. Oh, was it Craig that done them? Sorry, I think it was. Whoever done
Texas
sports,
Gooner.
I think it was
Texas Gooner did.
Oh, sorry. I just looked at Texas Gooner's ratings and he gave it to Aubameyang. And I've just looked at who scored as well and they gave it to Aubameyang. Okay. And they had Lacazette as our second best player. Yeah, but who scored actually gave him man of the match total, like including the Brighton players. But really? As I said, I will caveat that by saying Aubameyang plays for who scored ratings because he gets it every week. Yeah, whatever he does is what their algorithm likes.
Yeah, no, he does. He always does. Matt Ryan, what did he score? Just the
on who scored, he got 7, and Aubameyang got 7.6.
Fuck me, I reckon. Jeez, Matt Ryan, like he kept Brighton in the game. I don't know how that worked, but anyway.
I think with a keeper, I mean, look, he's made 3 saves. 2 from Aubameyang and 1 we can't remember, so I'm assuming it wasn't a great chance.
Yeah, I can't think of that one. Yeah, fuck, I got me fucked that one. The 4 shots on target. It was Tony, you wouldn't know this, but Max, just off topic again. Matt Ryan, he goes next week to Asian Cup, doesn't he?
I think he does. Yeah. Well, I mean, if he's not, he should be.
Fuck, I thought he was. I didn't think he was going to be in this game. Yeah, that's fucking pain in the arse.
They're paying his wages, mate. I'm sure they're going to keep him until the last possible second.
Yeah, no, I thought Arnold was trying to call them all back for Boxing Day, but that must have been letting him play this game and then calling them back. So
I reckon Australia as a nation has about as much pull as me after 75 years of Orson Bookers, mate.
Fuck all, mate. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I'd like my keeper back. Yes, go fuck yourself.
Okay, so very hard one. Texas Gunner did our ratings, and you can find that at clockend.blogspot.com. Okay, let's get into a couple of questions, boys, because we've got a few coming in. But just before we get going, Tony, can you believe this is our 100th episode?
No, it's funny, isn't it? We started off. I mean, I don't know how it started off completely, but my involvement started off because I was too lazy to write, and I said I'll do stuff if I can speak, but don't have to write anything.
Yeah.
And 100 episodes down. I'm not sure how many viewers, but a lot more than the 2 I expected. Thanks for the support of everyone. We wouldn't have done it without you. I mean, it's for you we do it for. As Max said with their podcast, it's a conversation that would probably take place anyway, but we record it and people seem to like to listen to our ramblings and our often nonsense. And obviously the questions is probably the biggest part of the podcast, and that definitely couldn't be done without the listeners. So we have to thank them for them, and I really wish Swin was here because he's much better at doing this shit than I am.
Look, it's great. It has been good. 100 episodes in, and Max has had to sit in the seat for Schwinn because he's a useless cunt. He just couldn't be fucked coming today. So,
fuck you, blokes. Give it to Schwinn, huh?
Mate, he's been gone. He's been gone for 4 weeks. We still don't know where he's gone. Last I heard, he was stopped at the Mexican border trying to get back to the US. Look, Schwinn would love to be here. People often wonder, is there been a bit of a tiff between us all? But I can assure you there definitely isn't. It's all banter between me and Tony and Schwinn, and it's been a pleasure doing the podcast with the boys, and we'll continue on. And 100 in and 100 more to go, eh? So,
well,
I feel honoured. Thanks for having me on the 100.
I've just figured that I've missed one. So next week's my 100th cap, and I expect to be lavished with gifts.
I don't think I've missed any, have I?
You've missed fucking loads.
Yeah, maybe I have. I can't remember. But yeah, nah. Anyway, I'm close to 100. Let's get into this shit. Okay, some questions. So Tony Defence says, he's asked the question for Schwinn. Hey, Schwinn, come and answer your fucking question. At Schwinn, he's using Guendouzi for build-up as if G were Perlo.
And I think this is a second part of a 2-part question.
Okay, so I might skip that.
100 episodes in, mate. Get it together.
Yeah,
he never looks.
I've never looked at it, mate.
You're also lucky he didn't do an intro today because he fucks that up every week as well.
Sandeep. Righto. Thoughts on Emery's first 6 months. Predictions regarding our PL position and whether we can win Europa League to secure a Champions League spot, and what needs to change in Emery's next 6 months. If he does secure a Champions League place, could he be sacked? Tony?
It's a weird one. I was thinking about this last night, and we're both ahead of where I expected us to be in terms of league position and only being 2 points off fourth. But I think we're also behind where I expected us to be in terms of, I thought by now we'd be starting to take shape and to see what it is he's ultimately trying to do, and we would know our strongest team and how, if everything was ideal, how we would line up. And we don't know that at all. We're not even close to knowing that. So it is a weird one because I think either answer is probably correct. That we could, if you could say we're ahead and give really good reasons why we're ahead, and you could also say we're behind if you want to be a bit more negative, and again give very real and good reasons why we're behind where you expected us to be. I think we can still make top 4. I wouldn't have my money on us. If someone put a gun to my head and said you have to put £100 on will we make top 4 or not, I would have my money on not if I had to pick. I don't think we'll win the Europa League. because I don't think we are good enough often enough. But then you never know, because we've done quite well against the big teams, barring maybe City, but it was the first game. And as I said, you probably only have to win two against top quality teams. You probably only have to win 2 ties in Europa League. So there's a chance, again, if you put a gun to my head and say you have to have a bet on yes or no, I would say no, we wouldn't win it.
What about you, Max?
Premier League plays 5th. Europa League out in the semis. Could Emery be sacked? Yeah, anyone can be sacked, mate. I think that we're 2 points off Chelsea, and in some ways, as a fan base, we all need to calm the fuck down. But
No, they get a bit excited, mate. They're all excited.
yeah, look, you win 22 in a row, and all of a sudden, everyone gets excited, right? Everyone starts getting excited, but the issues were here before we kicked off, and they kind of got covered up a little bit by some success, some luck. You know, as they say, you don't give the points back, so, you know, fuck you, they're ours. You can't have them. You know, I don't see why we can't go far in the Europa League. The reason why I said I think we're going to bail out in the semis is because we're fucked. We've got no defenders. We're running out of gas now in December. January is a very difficult time to do business. We know January is a difficult time to do business. You either need to get people that clubs don't want, or you need to get people on contracts that are running out. Often you pay a premium. Like Tony said, I wouldn't put money on us. I wouldn't put money on us for any of it. But I'll tell you what, if we finish 5th and we go deep in the Europa League, I'll still see that as a successful season. And for a rebuilding system, when we've seen clubs like Man U really cook the chook and eat shit, it's not the worst result. I'll still consider that as a successful season. I'll judge Emery on 2020.
Yep.
See, I somewhat agree with you. If we come 5th and get the semis of Europa League, but we can clearly see what he's trying to do and where the plan is going forward, then I wouldn't say success, but I would say it's okay.
It's a pass mark.
Yeah.
You know, it's a pass mark. We're not forward, we're not down.
If we finish 5th, get to the semis of the Europa and do whatever we've got to do in the FA Cup, but don't win it, and we're still like we are now where we don't really know what's going on, then it's not a pass mark. For me, the margins are that tight because, let's be honest, that's what we done last season, and last season was the worst season in our history, not in our Premier League history, but since the 2000s. Yeah, not even yet. And
but
that was the worst season ever. Everyone was going mad. It was horrible. It was horrendous. We're terrible at everything. The world's going to blow up. So for me, it can't be a pass if the same thing happens again.
But are we judging Emery or are we judging Arsenal? Because I'll struggle to judge Emery at the end of a season.
We can see what he's trying to do. But if we
can we see what he's trying to do without personnel? Can we see what he's trying to do without?
But the personnel gets given to him. He's a head coach. He's not a manager.
It's true. It's true.
Mm-hmm. What I was going to say, though, because I can't remember what he are, and where's Schwinn? This is where we need that useless cunt. Because I can't remember what our predictions were at the start of the year, Tony. But so if Emery gets 5th in the Premier League, bows out in Europa League, but wins the FA Cup or we're still in the other one. The other,
no,
we're not. We're out of that too. If we win the FA Cup, is that a pass?
Again, it would come down to he would keep his job for sure, but for me, it would come down to if you can see what he's trying to do. Because again, that is exactly the same as the second last Wenger season.
Yeah.
All our eggs need to go at top 4, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
If we're close enough to it, we're 2 points off it. If we're close enough to it and it comes down to sticking men on a roll of the dice, on a flip of a coin for a knockout competition, or it comes down to charging towards the end of the season in the last couple of months within 3 points of top 4, we go hard at top 4. That's what we do, because the most important thing for this club has to be that we become a serious club again, a Champions League club. So when we go into the market, we're attracting Champions League players, not Europa League players.
Be good to get back there, mate. Okay, Sand Deep. Hey, I'll throw this one at you, Max. I feel like this is what we will get from Emery a few weeks ago I said was lack depth, and it really seems to be the case. Emery seems to have used up all his tactics, and how did he send away beyond the field without telling him which formation to play? Top 4 is out of our reach, he feels.
2 points off Chelsea, Sandeep. So I don't think it's out of our reach. Yes, we went through this. There were issues with the shape, massive issues with the shape. Has he run out of tricks? I kind of don't know whether he had that many tricks to start with other than, shaking the beehive and seeing what came out. So, look, we're yet to see a system. It got said before, we're yet to get to the end of the year or the halfway point of the year and say, this is our system, this is what we're doing. Instead, we've seen kind of 10 systems with almost every piece of personnel that we have at our disposal. The question's loaded. It's unanswerable.
Yeah, I know. And I was just thinking, talking about formations and different stuff and what is Emery doing? When you look at Liverpool and Klopp, he hasn't won anything. How long has he been there? 4 years now? But they haven't won anything. Okay, they're top of the table this year. They made it to a Champions League final last year. But Liverpool, fucking Liverpool fans. But anyway, but at least you can see what he was trying to do throughout that process. So if we start seeing that with Emery, do you keep it going? Boys, do you like 4 years and go, okay, well, we haven't won anything, but we can see what he's doing. He's bringing in players. He's filling holes where we need things done.
Well, you need improvement as well. So there's no point seeing what he's doing if what he's doing is only taking you to 5th or 6th every year.
Oh,
so
no.
I think in the first year, you can be forgiven for not achieving not getting the Champions League if you can see what direction he's going, which is why I said a fifth could be seen as a marginal pass if you can see what he's trying to do.
And if we're close enough in points, Tony, if we're there and we're 3 points off and we finish the year 3 points off, we can look at that and we can say we're in touching distance. We know what we're doing.
But
if
again,
we finish,
for me,
only
if
15
you can see
points
what he's
off,
trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. But if we finish 15 points off and what we can see some of what he's doing, there's a system there. Well, if we end up down where Man U are, staring into the fucking void of football, wondering what's going on.
I was talking about coming 5th, and realistically, you're not going to be 15 points off 4th and 5th.
Yeah.
We're going to look back at this Brighton game and go, there was 2 fucking points.
Well, that's one of the most upsetting things. I've seen a lot of tweets about it. Is a lot of the points we've dropped are ones that you'd probably expect us not to. I mean, Palace away, we were leading. Wolves away, Wolves at home, was an absolute shambles, but you'd expect us to win that game. Southampton, before the game, you'd expect us to win. We didn't deserve to, but I'm saying before the game, you'd expect us to win. Yep. And what was the other? There was another one that was a bit...
Man U.
Yeah, there was another one against more of a Brighton, obviously, yesterday. And you think if we had it'd be 9 points more from them games, we'd be above City, which is crazy. And I know if my auntie had a cock, she'd be my uncle. But it's do you know what I mean? You can take the Liverpool...
These fucking bombs, mate, they come up with analogies. Do you know
what I mean? You can take the losses to Chelsea and City, but when you drop points in the smaller games, you kind of think, if only.
That one did me. I'm going to use that one.
Oh, fucking hell.
I'm going to find a way to get it into dinner conversation tomorrow night.
Or just anything where anyone says, if this happened.
I'm just going to feed it in, mate. I'm going to sit back in my chair, open a beer and smile.
Sandeep also says, congratulations, guys. Merry Christmas. Getting really frustrated with Schwinn at the moment. No, he's getting frustrated with Emery and his substitutes. We desperately need to fix our defence. Any chances we might be getting a CB or an RB? Look, we're not really going to know, but obviously we all know we need one. For me, though, I still think the right winger is needs to be on the New Year list. But if you got to put money on it, boys, Tony, CB, RB,
centre back, yes. Right back, no.
Max.
As in what I actually think we're going to get in January?
Well, yeah, you can throw it out there if you want.
I think we're going to get fuck all in January, if I'm being honest. If I had to put my money on it, maybe centre back. Do you know what? If I actually had to genuinely, if someone told me I had one position, if someone said I had 50 million, 60 million quid and I had one position, I could only fill one position, I'd go by the best right winger, ball dribbling, ball whipping, Aubameyang feeding right winger I could get, and I'd double down on what we've got and Rob Holding and maybe drag Callum Chambers back. I honestly think that we have that much of an issue in being disconnected in wide areas as much as our defence is the biggest issue and the place where everyone wants to go and solve. I actually think there's an element of just complete disconnection out there in wide areas for us.
Yeah, for most definitely right winger for sure. But yeah, right back. I suppose Bella and Lichtsteiner. That's probably where that's coming from. Yeah, centre back. Look, but when you get Mustafi back, you know, and Holding's gone. He's out for the season. Mafropan.
Well, it's what we spoke about last week, Tez, that if he wants to play at a three at the back, that for me, you can't trust Koscielny. I know some people's views differ, but you definitely can't trust him to play every week. So if you want to play three at the back with Holding out, we don't have three. So that's where that's...
Yeah,
I actually don't detest Mustafi in a 3. I detest Mustafi in a 2. I don't detest Mustafi in a 3. So it's another one of those things about horses for courses and, you know, players for positions.
Yeah. Okay, Vish says, any news on new signings according to the CET, the Clock End Talk WhatsApp group? We need to sell what fucking WhatsApp? We haven't even got a WhatsApp group, have we, Tony?
No, not anymore. You made that sound like sarcastic, but we genuinely don't anymore.
No, we don't.
Yeah, no, we obviously did.
I thought I might have been kicked out of it. That cunt can fuck off, queer Aussie fucker. That's why it sounded like that.
Yeah, it became chaos, so we got rid of it. But yeah, I know exactly what he means. Every time I looked in that, it was anytime someone misplaced a pass, they were shit. They should be sold and never return and hung and put down or whatever. And that's just football fans. It's like, I was talking about this the other day, and I was saying everyone's always shit. Do you know what I mean? No one can have a bad game. They're shit.
Yeah.
No one can be out of form. They're shit. And it's just like, people have an opinion, but they go way beyond doubling down. So they can't go, oh, someone had a bad game yesterday. They're shit. They're finished. And it's like, you probably started at the right place by saying they had a bad game. But then because, I don't know if you wanted views or you wanted retweets or you wanted to stand out in the crowd, you've gone, like, taking it 100 times further than where you actually started and where you was probably right.
I think people say things as well and then they don't want to backtrack on them. We said on the podcast today, we're the first people to put our hands up and say, call Granit Xhaka shit for the first 3 games. Last 3 games I've been saying he's been brilliant. Call Guendouzi shit for 3 weeks. He was my man of the match this week. It just needs to be an element of, you know, looking at things based on performances, not preset narratives.
We actually had this discussion last week when I was saying to Tez that no one ever admits to being wrong.
I'm married, mate. I fucking admit to being wrong every 5 minutes.
in general, no one ever holds their hands up to being wrong. And I still think, I mean, you said you've done it, and I'll be a hypocrite and say, I still think when people say he's shit, is like, again, people going over the top, and it's become normalised that you can't say Granit Xhaka was poor against City and Chelsea, which he was, but people don't say that. He's fucking shit. We should never be playing for this side.
I don't know why.
As the season's gone on, and mine and Toby's podcast has gone on more and more, we've actually worked really, really hard at removing exactly what Tony's talking about. We really try hard not to say someone's shit or to say things indefinite.
Well, if you say they're shit,
bad game.
Yeah, no, yeah, but not, you know, not shit. Like, I'll say if somebody's shit, but explain to us why you come up with that. Don't just go, oh, that's shit.
Don't look at, you know, one misplaced pass in a game, and say that a player's shit. You know, it's a bad move. It's a bad moment for a player. I don't know whether it's just our fan base or whether it's the football fan base in general, whether it's part of that poison that built up in Arsenal over that 10-year period where we were just constantly, venomous. As it built, we became more venomous towards our club, more venomous towards our players, more venomous towards our manager. And it's just something that's residual that's left over at Arsenal, that we just need to go so hard all the time. The second someone's bad, they're shit. I think it's something as a fan base we all should take a good hard look at ourselves, boys.
Yeah, well, you tell him, Max.
I fucking will, man.
Look, so I'll just finish his question. According to WhatsApp group, we need to sell 90% of our team. Look, the only reason I could think is that people are saying that is that we aren't up to a City or a Liverpool standards is probably the only thing that I could think of where they're coming from with that comment.
Got to spare 400 million?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay, Brads, why is a winger number one priority for fans? Did they not realise that before this midweek fixture we were second in most goals scored in the league? Our problem is that we can't defend. We've conceded most goals out of anyone in the top five. Tony?
I get it because we need to strengthen at the back, but as I said earlier, we don't have the players to play in any system. And I think at least if we get a winger in, one, it provides a lot more service for the Aubameyangs and the Lacazettes. But also, you could then clearly play 4-2-3-1 and have players that actually fit the roles. And it looks like, because it's what he started the season with, it looks like that's probably what Emery wanted to start with, and only abandoned that when it became clear that he didn't have the players to play that shape. So I think that's one of the reasons people go on about a right winger. Also, it goes back to what we just said, in that people don't ever change their minds or admit they're wrong. And at the start of the season, it was abundantly clear we needed a right winger because it didn't fit the shape. And since then, maybe a centre-back has become a more pressing issue with Holding's injury, but people don't want to change their mind.
Yeah. Yeah, well, look, I'll stick to what I said last season, and look, we sold bloody Walcott, Oxlade-Chamberlain. They were never replaced. And then Jack Wilshere left, but them two wingers, they were never ever replaced from the time they left. So, sorry, Max, you were going to say something?
You have to look at it as a connected piece, though. A defence, a goalkeeper is only as good as the defenders in front of him making consistent decisions. The defenders are only as good as the midfielders sitting in front of them, making sure that when one's going, one's staying. The press is initiated by the wide players, by the front man, by the trigger point, by the number 10. So as much as you can say, we're scoring goals and it's the defensive, it's the defence's issue. Well, as much I put it to you that, maybe the players, Mkhitaryan's and your Ozils and your Aubameyangs to some degree, that there is a disconnection there further up the pitch that has a chain effect that causes the defence to look as bad as it does. I'm not saying our defence isn't shit. I think our defence is fucking shit. But I just think that it is a connected piece. A football match is a connected piece of bodies, and when those bodies all come together to drive towards the same outcome, you have results and you have performances. When you have disconnected pieces there, wherever that piece is, it's going to cause fractures throughout the lineup.
Well, you said it before when I mentioned about Liverpool City. Have we got to spare $400 million, or pound, or whatever you want to call it? But where do you start though? Okay, you're going to spend 120 million on January and try and get a right winger and a centre back, and then next summer, what are you going to spend another 100 million on this and that to fix this team?
You're telling me if I've got unlimited money, that four players who I think get into any or majority of the top four teams in the league right now are Aubameyang, Bellerin, Torreira. I think Lacazette would probably force his way into most teams. He works his whole off. And I actually think Granit Xhaka, in the right system with the right players around him, we're not asking him to do things that he's not physically capable of doing. He'd be able to get in there as well. So it's about taking everything that's around there and saying, well, if you want to be up with the cities, I don't think Liverpool are that far out of reach, really. I mean, I know they're sitting above City, so it's a stupid comment. But just looking at their purely at their squad and putting our players against their players, they're doing that based on system, not personnel.
Well, just to give you an idea, I seen before I did this podcast, and I wasn't going to bring it up because it was one of them. Might have been Goal or Sport something. It wasn't a reputable. It was Sport Mole, actually. They did a comparison.
Bleacher Report.
Yeah, something like that. They did a comparison on a no, it wasn't. It wasn't a comparison. It was the Liverpool Arsenal team. The only two players out of the Arsenal who made it in that team was, have a guess.
Aubameyang's got to be one.
Yeah, Aubameyang was one. Yep.
Surely Torreira's got to be in there.
And that was the other. That was the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the only two players they'd put in the team, and I thought, okay.
So if you've got £400 million to turn the team over, and I'll tell you what, every club that's ever done it has ended up having to do it probably twice over a 5-year period, because you can't build engines out of Frankenstein pieces. It doesn't work. People need to bed in. There need to be structures. You've even seen it with City now. They're bedded in. There are structures in place. It's just the ramblings of lunatics who think that you can, walk in and buy. So it took City how many years of spending money to get anywhere near the Premiership. It's not about that. It's about putting together a 5-year plan or a 3-year plan, looking at the age demographic of the players that we have, the skills of the players that we have, and working out who we're going to double down on, who we're going to start being a little bit smarter as a club, and we are going to move on while they have value. Even if they are good, can we get someone better, and can we get a valuable sale from that person, and try and work out what the club's going to look like in 5 years instead of worrying where we're going to be in 5 minutes.
That's right, yep. Okay, Brad's also says, I've seen a lot of fans have meltdown after the result, but let's be honest, we're 2 points off fourth and we are only lost 3 games by December. What more are fans expecting from the inconsistent players? To disagree, Brads. Hakon Larson, how long before we can play a game and be comfortably better than the opponent? A few years? We'll always fuck up like this. I feel we are Arsenal and we'll always do it. I'm so sick of these bullshit performances. Fuck, Hakon Larson. As you just said, Max, could be 3, 4, 5 years rebuilding, I suppose. Hakon Larson goes on, a fucking shit show. Emery looked completely clueless on the side and the subs. Holy fuck, is it even possible to do so much wrong? And the players need to step the fuck up. Hakon's pissed right off by the sounds of this. Looking like they don't care at all. This was last year kind of performance embarrassing. Okay, we agree or disagree, boys, with a couple of these comments?
I don't think, like, at times last year we was horribly flat, and I don't think we was flat yesterday. I think the players had no idea what they were doing in the second half. But if a manager creates confusion, then the players are going to be confused. As I said, it won't be coming on and not knowing where he's playing is where it starts. I mean, apparently, I don't know him, but apparently Iwobi's not the brightest anyway. But if he doesn't know where he's playing, that it don't matter how intelligent you are. If you're not told where you're playing, there's an issue. You've then also taken a striker off and bringing Ramsey on, and him and Iwobi could have literally been holding hands at times. The amount of times that Kolasinac was ahead of Iwobi because Iwobi didn't know where he's playing, so he was just kind of roaming anywhere, somewhere towards the left-ish. Even when we bring Maitland-Niles on, it got a bit more clearer. But then Xhaka was kind of playing in between a third centre-back and the midfield role he'd been playing the whole game. I actually thought Ramsey done semi-decent when he came on, but that was just because he managed the chaos, and that's probably more just having more Premier League experience than anyone else, more than anything.
He's a broken play player as well, Ramsey. He quite likes that bitty, things happening, little snapshots, things like that. It's
well, he got between the lines, which no one else was willing to do. And when you're doing something no one else is, unless it's obviously a load of shit, but when you're trying to affect the game in a way no one else is, you'll always stand out. But as I said, I kind of disagree with Hakon that it was as flat as games were last season, because I don't think it was. But I think it was a bunch of players that didn't know what they were doing. And for me, yesterday, that came from Emery. I think there was just confusion all over the pitch.
There's a lot of frustration here, but like we're forgetting though, and I'm not going to hang Aubameyang here, but if he had got them couple of goals, it'd be different, wouldn't it? You know,
could have said that for 10 games. You could have said that for 10 games this year, Tez. Yeah. You could have said that for almost every game Aubameyang has played. That's what he is. That's who we've got, and he's the top scorer in the Premier League. You know, to coin a phrase, mate, if my auntie was my uncle, she'd have a cock.
That's going to stick with you forever now, isn't it? So,
mate, it's the title of my next podcast, I'm telling you.
If you've learned something from us.
On the flip side of that as well, Tez, look at during that 22 game unbeaten run, how many times did we come on our podcast and say, to be honest, we should have lost that?
Yeah,
and teams didn't take their chances against us. So we was happy for it to go for us. You've got to overlook that someone missed a chance, when if we played perfectly and we missed a chance, then I think it'd be more than fair to say, you know what, you should put it away and we win the game. When there's so much else that's gone wrong, I don't think you can pin it on that one incident that happened 20 minutes into the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, true. But I just think that they're just jumping a bit early, I think. Like, just settle down.
I would say we're the most fucked team in the top, 10? Are we the most injury-riddled team in the Prem at the moment? We'd be close.
We'd have to be close.
We'd be close. So
what happened to Everton? They got flogged by Spurs. They have a heap out.
They get fucking flogged by everyone, mate.
Did they
won 5-1? But no, not really. I think they had Idrissa Gueye out, which meant they had absolutely no defensive midfielders. So they essentially played a back four, front six, and every time Tottenham went forward, they scored.
Yeah, okay. So okay. We probably are the most fucked percent.
I think we may be the most fucked team in the Premier League, and there's just an element. As much as we can sit here and we can have conversations, we can talk about Emery, we can talk about the subs, we can talk about the misses. We do have to always have that caveat there of we kind of went 21 games undefeated without a great deal of injuries, and it's all gone to shit somewhere around the injuries. So whether or not that's by luck or by design, or whether it's actually highlighting that maybe Emery's not as good as what we thought he was, and maybe it was the personnel that was getting him through. Now he doesn't have the personnel. Is this now showing us maybe what the real Emery is? I'm not willing to make a decision yet.
No, I'm not either. And you know, it's probably one thing that he can say that, well, I've had a lot of injuries. Like, you know, we didn't think Mustafi and Holding and you know, whoever, Bellerin, and you know, there's three in the back line.
Bellerin, Monreal, Welbeck.
So, yeah, it goes on and on. Fuck, Welbeck, yeah, I forgot about him. Yeah, so, you know, one thing I suppose he could say is, well, who else has had this many injuries? But then it comes to depth. So.
I haven't looked at it. Do you know what? I'm going to look at the stats tonight. I'm going to have a look at it. I can't think of another Premier League team that's got 5-6 guys who could all Mkhitaryan, metatarsal, add that on top of it. You know,
where's the website that ranks them all? I can't remember. I think it's an injury table or something like that. I can't remember what it is. Otherwise, I would have looked.
I'd be very surprised if we weren't at least in the top two.
Definitely up there. Tony Defence says on people going on about giving Emery time, not writing him off. While I'm not writing him off, I see fundamental problems which I'm not sure will change over time. Jack Ramsey out. He messed around with the Ozil lacquer unhappy. And then he goes on, because that's one of two. This must be... he's using Guendouzi for build-up as if G were Pirlo and we were Italy. While Ozil and Ramsey are on the bench, is he turning Arsenal into Sevilla? His substitution and tactics, is his hand forced due to injuries, or is this really his brand of football?
It's a tough one because he is going back to what we saw at Sevilla, and I don't know if he's trying to react to us conceding so many goals by putting 3 screeners in front of the midfield, but it's something I don't think Arsenal fans are ever going to accept. much in the way that Mourinho in his first season at United won trophies, but he was never really accepted. And it's always the case with them type of managers that okay, they won't accept you, but while things are going right, they'll be on board. But as soon as things start going wrong, you're in trouble. I think it would be a big mistake for Emery to continue down this line. And initially, it looked like he wasn't going to, and hopefully, he is just reacting to the injuries, because I think he'll be in trouble if he sticks with this method long term.
Okay. Island Boy Gooner, congratulations on the 100th podcast. Thanks, mate. Raf says, now Jenkins is playing a few games. Has Schwinn taken his place as Gunnosaurus? Fucking classic. Would we explain his absence, please? Well, mate, as I said, he's just on holidays, I think. Or he's locked up in a Mexican jail somewhere. Also, why have we started doing so many backwards and sideways passes? We were much more direct earlier this season. It's back to Wenger days at the moment. Backwards and sideways passes.
Is that true? Do you think that's true, Tony?
Well, the question really pisses me off, and I've seen a lot of people say this. Wenger didn't play a lot of sideways and backwards football. I don't know where this idea has come from. Like, I know we were pissed off.
He played a lot of possession. He played a lot of possession around the edge of the box. He played that horseshoe around the edge of the box, probing. But I don't ever remember Wenger at any point playing boring midfield, sideways possession. We were always a team that played intricate triangles with changes of pace and tempo. You know, slow ball, penetrative ball, run. I mean, people have got short fucking memories, don't they?
Well, as I was just going to say, and I completely agree with you, I think where people wanted Wenger out, and we were bad in the last couple of years, and now anything that's negative, they attach to Wenger, slow boring football, the same as Wenger was. And it was like, no, it was never that. We were never boring. We could have been very bad. We weren't boring. And again, it's what we were saying earlier, short-term memories and everything being a catastrophe. And to answer the other part of the question, I think we don't have enough people ahead of the ball. I think when you're playing with three sitting midfielders who none of them really get in front of the ball, I know there's been a lot of arguments about whether they're defensive midfielders or centre midfielders. Regardless of whatever name you want to put on it, none of them play ahead of the ball. So yesterday we played with fullbacks, so they weren't ahead of the ball because that's not their role. So you've got a keeper, a back four, and a midfield three, all of whom play behind the ball. So then you've got three players, and Ozil was one of them that comes short to get the ball to try and create something. So now you've got 9 of your 11 players behind the ball. So the obvious pass in a way is backwards. It's wrong, but when you set up in that system, you're either going to have players that give the ball all the time because they're aiming at 1 or 2 players and have to pick out a Hail Mary pass, and then have to get up into support, which isn't their game. Like even when the issue, I mean, with the chances we made, it was because Aubameyang ran through the centre. But even if we played to channels to Aubameyang yesterday, none of Guendouzi, Torreira and Xhaka are going to get up and support him. So it still would have only been Aubameyang and Lacazette and maybe Ozil joining in that would have been able to do anything.
Takes you back to the need for ball carriers. Guys who can beat people. Guys who are athletic, strong, slalom runners. Guys who go beyond people. And those people were people who are in the Diaby mould, the Vieira mould. Hopefully, in the Ainsley Maitland-Niles mould, if we ever see the fucker in the middle of the park. But that's where we lacked because, it's, like you said, you've got a back four, you've got 3 defensive, non-penetrative midfielders sitting in front and no one who offered anything dynamic. No one who offered anything where they could just get on the ball and burst half a yard, do someone, break the lines, in between the lines, scattered play, feed a winger, ping a ball across. It was all very set and monotonous. But to go back to the question, I don't ever remember that being Wenger football. We might have been diabolical at the back, but we were never fucking boring.
Nah, I agree with you, boys. I was just trying to think. Even last year, we criticised El Neni a few times, Tony, but it wasn't the style we played.
That's not the whole team.
It wasn't
system.
The whole team.
I mean, again, this goes back to something I feel like I moan about every time I speak about Arsenal. And, again, it happened yesterday. We would have lost this game last year. But we would have lost this game. 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 We would have lost this game we hear every time we drop points, oh, we would have lost this game last year. And it's like, well, we haven't got a crystal ball. And then yesterday, annoyingly, people have got, well, actually, we did lose this last year. But no one was saying that when we drew at Palace and we'd won that game last year. I'm not saying that I wanted Wenger gone as much as anyone else. I didn't jump up and down and hire an aeroplane, but I didn't want him to be our manager anymore. And I made that very clear. But this constant, the constant way of making everything seem okay by saying we would have done better last year. But yes, our aim is to be better than last year, but not by 1 or 2%, because last year we was more than 1 or 2% off. I don't think anyone brought Emery in to get one more point than we did last season. That's not the aim.
Rose-tinted glasses. Get some memories, cunts.
Well, it goes on, boys, and you can jump in if you want. So Vish said the defence and sideways backward passing after Aubameyang's goal suggest we switched off mentally, or were we trying to hold out for a 1-0 win, conserve energy for the Liverpool match?
I think we were rooted. I think we were physically rooted.
No,
I think
wouldn't
we
be
never.
concerned for Liverpool. We wouldn't be looking that far in advance.
Never should have played the team we played at Tottenham, despite all the vigorous Tottenham hating, and you can't go and lose to Tottenham. But if ever there was a time when maybe it might have been 3 players in that team who shouldn't have played that game, I just thought that the team looked like they were running in sand. And that's why we had those 2 10-minute spells. I thought the first 10 minutes of the half when we looked hot and the first 10 minutes of the second half when we looked hot. I just think we're out of gas, and it's very, very worrying staring at the Liverpool team and seeing a team that's out of ideas and out of energy. So we're not going to creatively beat you, and we're not going to be able to go with you physically. We might get touched up.
Yeah. Tony, get your bloody who scored up, because Raf... this is a conversation between, regarding the first question. Our lack of forward passing was shocking. Nearly the entire first half was back and sideways, and he's done the fucking slap your fucking forehead emoji. And he's showing me a screenshot of a heat map with... I see the heat map, what he's talking about, but it's very hard on a podcast to describe it. 467 odd touches for the Arsenal, 476 for Brighton, but I think he's trying to show me a lot of backward passing on that heat map. But I don't think...
a heat map is just where the areas players are.
So, yeah.
He's highlighted the first half, but the first half is when we created chances.
Well, the first 20 minutes was fucking brilliant, I thought.
Yeah, so,
I don't know what you're showing me, Raf. Yeah, mate, let us know, buddy.
Look, the premise is correct. There was a hell of a lot of backwards and sideways passes, but I don't think the first half is what I would highlight.
Probably the second.
Yeah, and it's just the whole game's baffling, to be honest. It was all weird. I'm trying to look to see on who scored, if they do a direction of passes.
I think they do a it's called the chalkboard or something, isn't it? And they do the direction of passes or something, don't they?
I still think a lot of it came down to the way Brighton set up their midfield and their complete lack of press. Having that line of 5 across midfield. Yes, a lot of it was us holding the ball and going side to side, trying to find a way through the midfield, because Arsenal aren't a long ball team, and Houghton tried to force us into being a long ball team. So maybe look at the other team and what the system that the other team employed and how they forced us into playing, instead of only looking at our negatives, even though our negatives existed.
Well, I agree, but then you've got to do something to combat that. And
that's where his failure was.
Yeah, exactly. He's taken off Ozil that plays between lines. Iwobi's come on and not played between the lines. And if he didn't, you could say it's his fault, but we know he wasn't instructed where to play, because we've all seen the video, or I assume we have. And then Ramsey, who, for me, as I said, I thought he looked really good when he came on, and it was because he played between the lines.
No, it was just one of them games, boys. It was completely fucking mess. And people said at the start of the year, Emery, he's watch him. He watches videos and he's fucking a freak at watching videos. So I'd imagine obviously he didn't, but you'd think he's watched the videos and seen how Brighton set up against bigger teams and how to combat it. But whatever he tried to do yesterday, was a completely fuck up. It didn't work at all. Vish says, Emery's fight with Ozil is killing our game. Ramsey and Ozil need to play over Iwobi and Guendouzi. The substitution of Lacazette is really baffling. Against Brighton, we lost control when Ozil came off. How do you think this team will survive who are coming into form against the Liverpool team? And we'll digress into that because that's the last question. So,
can I just interrupt you there? I've just got the amount of touches. So I haven't got the pass direction. But, I mean, this tells you a hell of a lot. Socrates, 107 touches. Xhaka, 131. Guendouzi, 102. Torreira, 95. These have got to be some of Premier League highs this season.
It's not regular to get more than 100 touches. Xhaka's usually our highest touch player, and he averages around the 90 to 105 mark. To have 5 players or 6 players all touching the ball that much says that we couldn't penetrate, and we just kept coming back and recycling.
Yeah, and just another thing that... So I'm not picking on Iwobi, but he's the one that's come on for Ozil. And everyone says Ozil was anonymous, and I said I held my hands up. He didn't do anything. Ozil, they both played 45 minutes because he came on for him at half-time. Ozil had 32 touches, Iwobi 27.
Well,
so,
yeah.
And Ramsey 24 touches, and he played 20 minutes less than Iwobi. Lacazette 34. So Lacazette in his extra 15 minutes had 2 more touches than Ozil. And as I said, he's blameless because we couldn't get the ball up to him. But yeah, just to look at these numbers, Torreira 95, Guendouzi 102, Xhaka 131, Socrates 107, Koscielny 84.
So there was a lot going back, a lot trying around.
It just tells you where the ball was.
Yeah, that's right. Like Max said, trying to get...
Game was fucked, Tez.
Fucking
it was
unreal,
fucked.
Unreal.
Fucking fucked, mate.
Unreal. Fucked. So anyway... Fucking Liverpool, boys. Not looking forward to this one. So touching on Vish's comments, and like I said, we will go into this now. How do we start, Tony, against Liverpool?
Fuck knows. Hopefully we tell the players where they're playing. That's the start of it.
Anfield, mate. Anfield. Let's start there.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a horrible place to go. It is a hard place to play. As I said, I think ideally probably a back 5, but you need your wing backs to be tucked in with your centre back. We went there, we was very disjointed last year because of the transfer stuff that was going on. But we went there last year with a back 5, and the centre backs and the wing backs played so far away from each other that it was so easy for Liverpool because we basically left Salah, Mane and Firmino one-on-one with their respective men, and Mane in particular had an absolute field day. So I think it's so difficult. So I don't think we have to play as to play either. But if you're going to have to shoehorn players in, I'd go with what I think is best and go with a back 5, but a tight back 5. It may be a bit hard for Kolasinac because he's not used to being tucked in so tight to his centre back, but needs must. I think you have to keep Aubameyang on the pitch to stretch them. It stops them defending too high. And then you have to have Lacazette on the pitch to hold the ball up. So I think you look at both of them, and Xhaka and Torreira have to play. And it's that one other spot, which is the one I'm not sure what I would do with.
I think we play that 5 diamond, and we get the 2 up top with Ozil in behind. We try get some running.
Did you see him playing Ozil at Anfield, though?
I'm starting to wonder about what choice he's got at this point. Like, people have been saying, at what point does he just have to double down and say, I'm going to play you?
I think he's doubled down the other way already and gone, I'm not going to play you.
And he sticks a fucking captain's armband on him. Like, it's all smoke and mirrors at this club. I'll stick an armband on you, I'll give you a run. That game he was maybe a bit perplexing. Some people, the Burnley game I'm talking about, some people thought he was great, some people thought he was shit. Comes into this game, he gets pulled off at half-time. I mean, if you look at the last game against Liverpool, where we won that game was Torreira and Xhaka. Xhaka's best game of the season was against Liverpool. and Torreira's, you could argue his real genuine breakthrough game for me was against Liverpool as well. And those two fucked a three-man midfield of, what was it, Milner, the other twonk who's done fuck all, Fabinho, who had an absolute stinker on the day, and Van Alden. And the two of them overran the midfield. Xhaka had a blinder, Torreira had a blinder, like I said. So
we played a back four that day, didn't we? And Ozil had. I remember we tweeted about it quite a lot at the time. Ozil played very well, but didn't get a goal or assist, so it'll be gone down as another big game where he didn't do anything.
I think at the end of that podcast, what Toby and I said was we thought that almost every player on the pitch played nearly to their best level. Nearly to their best level on the day. There were very few mistakes. There were very few errors. Took our chance. We still didn't win it, don't forget. And we still could have lost it. So I'm with Tony on this one. I think the folly thing to do would be to go out there and say attack, attack, attack. And maybe the smarter thing to do is to stick a really tight back five, two defensive midfielders, and then put all of our running assets on the pitch and run at them. And you know what? For me, in a little diamond, maybe that's Ramsey.
Well, I was going to say that, but again, it's another one that he's doubled down on so far. Yeah. Not playing.
I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to go with your pride, Emery, and your arguments and your fights, or are you going to look at the fact that you've just dropped 2 points? You're 2 points. You're 2 points off top four. You just dropped points against Brighton. Maybe if he had picked up 3 points at Burnley and 3 points at Brighton, he could have continued the war. But maybe now he's got to look at it and go, well, Iwobi's been fucked. Mkhitaryan's not there. Everyone's out of form. Everyone's rooted. Maybe I'll just put my best assets on the pitch and assets who play big games. Ramsey plays big games. Well, maybe stick the armband on Ramsey and just tell him to fucking go at it and say, show me why you're worth going to Juventus, son.
Well, I just look back at the, obviously the first two games, Chelsea and Man City. 4-2-3-1 was the formation in both of them. He started Iwobi. Aubameyang up front, Ozil, Mkhitaryan was there, so he won't be there, obviously. Xhaka and Guendouzi were in the mids. Now, City, he did the same. That was the first game. So I'm just thinking big games, that's all, because he's going to look at this as a big game, and it was a 4-2-3-1 as well. But this one he went, that's right, he had Ozil on the right, Ramsey in the middle, Mkhitaryan on the left, Aubameyang up front. So
but then you say that, you're right, obviously, but then against Tottenham, which is and United, which are our two most recent big games, we went with a back five. So I don't think you can say, that's ideally what we want to do when he's changed it since.
It's a great argument for what we've been talking about this entire pod, about what fucking system is in place. It's just shining a light on everyone's tweets, everyone's conversation, our conversation tonight. It's all been about, we can't seem to sit here and say, I've got an idea of what we're going to do. Now, either we can look at that as it being a really good thing, because for a long time under Wenger, we knew who our 11 was, we knew how we were going to run out, and a lot of time we knew what the result was going to be. Or we can look at it and say, it's a terrible thing because no one knows where the fuck they're playing and we don't know what we're doing. It's an Arsenal conundrum.
No idea. Tony, we got a question in on the email, and you can also send us your questions on email at any time, clockandtalk@gmail.com. Abby Bose. Yep, that'll do.
Is that his full name, Taz?
No, his full name is... Abby Heshik Bose. Thanks, mate, for your email. Does Emery lack the ability to handle big players the way he's chucking Ozil and Laka out of the game after game? Does that show his lack of man management, Tony?
It's the worry after PSG. It really is a big worry.
He didn't get on with Neymar there, did he?
No, I mean Neymar is notoriously a very hard person to get on with, but he almost certainly lost the dressing room at PSG, and it's the worry here. I mean, it's strange that it's taken something other than Özil. When he was doing it to Özil and just hooking him off and whatnot, it was brilliant management, not letting the lazy prima donna do what he wants. Under Wenger, he played when he wanted, and it was brilliant management. Suddenly, he starts doing it to Lacazette, who's everyone's favourite at the moment, and it's a big issue.
But Lacazette's a cuddly French teddy bear. You know,
yeah, I mean, it's always been a big issue. It's been an issue with Ramsey. It's been an issue with Ozil. Again, it was covered up by going 22 unbeaten, and you can say, if you're getting results, it doesn't matter what you do. If he played the under-15s but was winning every game, you know what I mean? You're not wrong. But them things are always going to come and bite you on the arse when the results stop going your way. It remains to be seen if he struggles with big characters, but it is certainly a very big worry, because if you can't handle big characters, you're never going to be a top draw football manager, because, you know, I mean, I don't know the case in Australia, but in England and any huge football nation, and you'll have it with other sports, I don't know if it's the same case with football, the whole way growing up, if you're good at football and like, if you're the best in your class, you're semi-idolised, the best in your year group, you're idolised, the best in your school, you're idolised, and then they're going on to being the best players in the world. Their whole life they're spent being told how brilliant they are, and it may be right or may be wrong, but someone coming in and beating them down every week, as Emery's trying to do with Ozil, it's just not going to last long term. And we saw the same with Mourinho and Pogba. These players' egos are huge, and you're not going to change that. It just isn't going to happen. And long term, the players will always win over the manager.
I wonder whether or not Emery is an interim manager, and he's been brought in as an interim manager, brought in as a stabilising figure for a club that was in transition. We're looking at him through the scope of a long-term successor, but maybe what Emery's role for the club is going to be is to get us back in and around it, and then we can go into the market, and then we can go and start to attract better people when we are a Champions League club.
Yeah, my problem there with that is he hasn't got any control over transfers coming in. So he's basically the coach, and you got Sven and the team up above who are buying the players and saying, "Here you go, Emery, coach them players." So even if he's in, you know, as you say, maybe an interim manager for 2 years, 3 years, an interim manager, well, who then comes in and says, "Oh, well, fuck! I've inherited this team that
I've got no idea, Terry.
Yeah.
No idea."
Yeah, so it's I see where you're coming from.
There's also another side of the debate that if you're Raul Sanllehi at the moment, what the fuck do you do with Ozil? Because the manager doesn't fancy him for whatever reason. Everyone can link their different conclusions to why he doesn't fancy him. He's clearly a very talented player on his day. If his day's often enough, again, is another argument. You're not going to get much money for him in the transfer fee because of the wages he's on, but you are paying him a club high wages. So what the fuck do you do? You can't tell the manager who to pick, but then you also can't have someone as good as and being paid as much as Ozil just sitting around doing fuck all. So he's putting... This is where I think and it's what got him sacked at PSG, is that, as I said, I think he picks battles he can't win. He battled with Neymar, who just cost them 200 million. It was only ever going to be one winner. I think it's not as clear cut and dry with Ozil, but as long as the team aren't performing or stop creating chances when Ozil isn't playing, it becomes very similar.
Only success is going to win him that battle, Tony. If he finishes the season and he's top four and he's done it and he's burnt all these assets, I think then you're talking about Raul and Sven backing him and doubling down and sorting him out. I worry for him if he actually goes off the precipice here, that balance of power might shift exactly the way that you're saying it might, that all of a sudden the player power and the board's desire to back the assets becomes more valuable to them than backing a tinker man who likes to pick fights.
Yeah, I mean, just trying to think of... I've struggled to think of an occasion where, barring Sir Alex Ferguson, who was an absolute freak of nature as a manager, I can't remember a time when a manager's won a battle with a key player. Fergie won one with Beckham, And I think that's probably about it. And that's a manager of Fergie's stature. But Mourinho, I hate the guy, but he's in the top 5 managers in the world, you have to say. He was never going to win that battle with Pogba, ever. And I think Emery might be entering a realm where a winning position from his side is almost unheard of. You are right. If we get top 4, then I still think the same issue remains. They're not going to sell him for 10 million. They're not going to sell Ozil for 10 million, and they ain't going to get the offers of the 40s and the 50 millions. So they'd still go into next season with an asset that's costing them a fortune, who is still very useful to the club, but the manager's not having him.
No,
I'm not pro Emery or Ozil here. I see a car crash coming.
I do too. I'll just read his other question, and it's pretty much what we've touched on, so it's not real much point answering it. Is chopping and changing of the formation and the starting 11 resulting in a lack of game coordination by the players? We hardly create load of chances in a game. If you got any to add, but yeah, I think we've touched on most of it, haven't we?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of times when managers have won battles with players.
Well, there's probably a couple of, maybe Ancelotti, maybe. Trying to think, though he's coached a few teams. So.
Also, just to go back on what we were saying earlier, the injury table, it's called physioroom.com. I found it. West Ham are top with 10 players out. Us and Tottenham have both got 7 out, and we're joint second.
What's the caliber? What's the caliber of? There's got to be some kind of directive as well for the caliber of players. Like if Tottenham's got 4 fringe players out, and we've got 5 starting players out, there has to be a parameter, not just based on numbers.
Oh no, I just got out the table. I'm trying to expand it, but it keeps playing adverts, and I don't want people listening to just hearing adverts from physio. So injury tracker maybe. This is terrible podcasting, so you two talk away, and I'll try.
Someone should start singing a song.
It's all right. So
I've run out of beers.
We've run out of everything. Run out of content. Run out of run out of everything.
Two hours of shit talk, mate. At some point, we're going to run out. We just start going around in circles talking about what we think of what.
Yeah, mate. This is usually for us.
Start talking about the NRL in a minute, mate. Run out of Arsenal content.
Nah, we better not do that. Fuck, we'd lose a lot of listeners very quickly. So what's Toby up to?
He's just come back from his Christmas party. He was fairly pissed today. And we managed to rattle through. We said we were going to do an express episode because neither of us could be bothered.
Yep.
And we ended up doing an hour and 48 minutes. Every time we say we're going to do an express episode, it goes the opposite. Because
when's that out? That out now, is it? The latest one?
Yeah, I'll have to. I've got to edit some of it tomorrow. I don't usually do that much editing on it, but once we get quite deep into the beers, occasionally there are bits that are actually not fit for.
I've found it now.
Yep.
So Tottenham's players that are out, Vincent Janssen, who I didn't even know was still there, thought he was out on loan somewhere. Dembele, who's been out for a while.
He's a big loss.
Wanyama's also been out for a while, and I'd say they're both pretty key players. Aurier's out, but apparently all of Tottenham's are basically back soon, so Aurier could play their next game. Vertonghen's out till mid-January, so is Eric Dyer, and Dele Alli's out but could be back for their next game. Whereas our injuries seem to be a bit more. So we've got Nacho out, Mkhitaryan, Hector, Mustafi, Holding, Welbeck, Mavropanos. But Mavropanos is back in training. Obviously, Welbeck's long-term, Holding's long-term, Mustafi is a major doubt for Saturday. Almost certainly won't play, but I think he'll be fit after that. Probably appear at Fulham. Bellerin, they reckon mid-January. Mkhitaryan's out till February, and Monreal could be fit by the weekend. So I'd say in terms of Tottenham, we've got more longer-term injuries, but the quality of players probably around the same.
Okay, but
Fuck 'em. Fucking spuds.
What's your prediction, Max, for Liverpool?
Touched up 3-1.
3-1.
Liverpool.
Tony, I'm not wasting my time asking you, am I?
No.
No. I'm actually, I think we're going to get touched up. I hate to say it. I think we could be looking at like a 5-1 or something loss.
Yes, there's a worry that there's a cricket score coming, mate.
I really worry about our fucking defence. So we'll see. Okay, everybody. That'll do us. We'll wrap this up. And look, everybody, thank you once again for your questions. If you want to get your questions to us, you can email them now, anytime. So just fucking flick us an email, clockandtalk@gmail.com. You can also get us, we'll throw it up on the Twitter feed, usually about a couple of hours after a game, and you can ask your questions there on Twitter @clockand_talk. Thank you, Max, for joining us with our 100th episode, mate.
Not a problem, mate. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Love the podcast. It's in my weekly listens. So keep it up, boys. Happy to contribute whenever you need.
Thanks, mate. And enjoy yours as well, buddy. And Tony, thank you once again, mate.
No worries. I'll speak to you sometime. Well, it's not even next week now. I've lost all track of days because of Christmas, but after Liverpool.
I'll speak to you after Liverpool, and we'll see if our little mate's back from wherever he's from. Hopefully Schwinn will be joining us, but yeah, don't cross your fucking fingers. Okay, thank you again. See you later. Good night and good